This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 178, recorded October 19th, 2018. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today, as we've been doing since last week, and as we're going to be continuing to do for the next couple weeks, for the foreseeable future, I guess, is we are going to be talking about The Good Place. We've also restructured the podcast a little bit so that we're going to talk about some news stories ahead of that. And so let's just kind of jump into the news stories of this week. We just kind of picked out some of the kind of more interesting ones that we had something to say about, basically. So first up is Veronica Mars is coming back on Hulu. This isn't all new information that it's coming back, but the big news is that her dad is going to come back. The actor has re-signed. This pretty much brings back all of the principal cast. I think the only character that's like, you know, the only big characters that maybe haven't come back, I'm not sure, maybe they have, are like Mac. I'm not sure if she's back or not. Who was her boyfriend in like season 3?
Oh, I didn't watch season 3. I have no idea.
That guy, like, I'm not sure if he's back. He very well could be, but I'm not sure. And then the one like sheriff's deputy, the guy that ended up being on New Girl.
Oh yeah. I know
playing Schmidt. Yeah, I'm not sure if those 3 are back. Those are the only 3 like real principal characters on. There's a few other like kind of more smaller characters and stuff that
New Girl's over.
We haven't heard about.
Like he's busy.
I think he's got another show actually, but
probably.
but you know, I mean, having a show on doesn't necessarily exclude you. I mean, Kristen Bell's got The Good Place.
Yeah,
which we're going to be talking about, and she's going to be the lead in both.
Yeah,
she's not even like not even like just a recurring. She's the lead. But yeah, so I think they're going to be a bit flexible with people's schedules to kind of help them out on this. But man, lots of interesting people involved on there. And did you hear about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is going to be in the writer's room for it?
Oh, I heard something about that. Yeah,
that happened like last week. That's crazy.
That's insane.
He's going to be in the new season of iZombie, which is also done by Rob Thomas. And I guess they hit it off, and he liked him, so he's brought him on for that as well, to be in the writer's room of Veronica Mars. And man, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is having this weird like career resurgence. So he's like got to be what, in his 60s or something?
Yeah, it's weird.
Maybe his 70s. But yeah, I just saw him recently. Also, he was on Fresh Off the Boat playing himself. So yeah, it's just a little weird career resurgence, and just the fact that he's going to be in the writer's room instead of just appearing as like a guest star or something is kind of surprising. That's not something you normally see. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be credited for writing an episode. Like writers' rooms are kind of weirdly structured. They'll have people in the room that are literally just there for like levity, not for like levity in the show's writing, but for like levity for the room itself.
That's what I was like. Okay, when you brought up iZombie, I was like, is that getting canceled? I was like, yeah, season 5 is the last season for that.
Yeah, I don't think it's canceled. It's just they're ending it. You know, 5 seasons. It's the same thing with like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Like that show's ending, but it's not ending because CW pulled the plug. It's ending because, you know, that's all they had to write, basically.
Well, it's all. If you want my opinion on it, it's already like ran out of steam. So
yeah, a bit. Like I think it'll be interesting to see where they go in the last season. Just because they know it's the last season, that means that they can kind of start tying up any loose ends.
Yeah, they can tie up loose ends and they can just like go ham with it.
Like they're bringing Greg back. It's a different actor, but they're bringing that character back.
That's like so weird. I don't know. I hate that. I don't like it.
But I think they're doing it just so they can wrap up loose ends, you know?
Right.
For the storyline. So there's, it's just a lot of shows are doing that. It's weird. I'm seeing so many reports online, people going like, you know, and this will come up with another thing we're talking about. Like Netflix is finally canceling shows, and they bring up things like Orange is the New Black as an example. It's like Orange is the New Black wasn't really canceled. Like it's had a long run. I'm sure it was a mutual decision at this point, you know? Like
right.
It just seems like it's something that we're like, I bet Genji Khan is basically just like, yeah, we should probably stop around here. And Netflix is like, okay. doesn't really seem like a cancellation.
People confuse shows naturally ending with cancellation.
We'll be talking about a cancellation a little bit later, a couple stories down the line. But yeah, the Veronica Mars one's it's cool just because I really like the father-daughter relationship in Veronica Mars.
Yeah,
it might be one of my favorite parts.
I was like, yeah, they have to bring the father back, right? Because it wouldn't feel like Veronica Mars without him.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exciting. Pretty much everybody's back. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have high hopes.
Yeah, I was kind of worried it was going to be like a skeleton group from the original cast, but they're even bringing back like what was it, like Dick Casablancas, like his dad. The actor who plays his dad is coming back. So it's like they're even bringing back people like that. So they're really tying back into like kind of main storylines that take place in Neptune. So that's really cool. Our next news story: Netflix has just bought ABQ Studios in New Mexico for $30 million. So the reason this is really interesting is that the studio cost $91 million to make. So they're buying it for a third of the cost of what it cost for the studio to be built.
Holy crap!
The studio is fairly new. It's not that old. It was home to Breaking Bad and a few other shows kind of filming in New Mexico. But of course, their flagship one's going to be Breaking Bad. But what's really interesting here is that New Mexico, the reason this sold in the first place is that New Mexico, like they had this whole idea that they were going to become like a new big filming location. Like if you've noticed, that's been happening kind of like in a bunch of places recently. Like Atlanta has become like a huge filming location recently. The Walking Dead was like maybe the first big one that was filming there a lot. Now like most of the Marvel movies seem to be filming there, at least some of them. All the Avengers definitely film in Atlanta. And like all the soundstage stuff is all in Atlanta for the Marvel movies. And then you have like the show Atlanta itself, and so it's like Atlanta's becoming this like new hotspot to film. So a bunch of places have done that. And one of the ones that was doing that was Albuquerque, New Mexico, because of the success of like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But like everything dropped out on them. Like all the plans they had kind of dropped out. So it looked like filming in New Mexico is just kind of dead. Like nobody's going to do it. But Netflix buying it is a big deal because Netflix makes a lot of content. They have something like 600 originals now.
Yeah, they have tons.
And they're making the content. So it's not just like that they're licensing content that can be made from anywhere. A lot of the content they're making themselves.
Original content they're making.
Which means that you're probably going to see a lot of shows going into production in Albuquerque that are made for Netflix just because they can, because they have the studio now. They have a big studio that was built to do this. So that's what's going to be kind of interesting. So if you're watching Netflix and you're like, God, why is everything on Netflix shot in New Mexico? Well, now you know. But it could be stuff that you don't even realize, because like Netflix is getting into a lot of sci-fi recently and stuff. So that kind of stuff, like you might not even realize because it'll all just be sound stages. And so it really doesn't matter where it films, just as long as they have a soundstage. And now they have a massive set of sound stages in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Nice.
Man, that's a good deal for Netflix. $30 million for a good
deal. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's crazy. I mean, Netflix has been pushing further and further into original. And now they even have their own studio. That's awesome. Pretty soon they're going to have their own theme park,
Yeah, Netflix land.
They've been exploring merchandising, so that seems like the next step from merchandising and studio, right? Man. You buy a studio, you do merchandising, you open a theme park.
I can't wait for the Upside Down roller coaster that takes you into a nerd dimension.
Didn't we talk about it last week that like that they're doing it in Northern Ireland, that they're keeping all of the sets from Game of Thrones and turning it into a tourist attraction?
No, I don't remember, but maybe you did mention it. I don't remember.
Yeah, so it makes sense. Like if you build, I mean, in Northern Ireland, they built the wall, like the Castle Black and a big chunk of the wall, like that's literally built there. They also built like Winterfell, and they built like there's big, huge castle sets and stuff like in Northern Ireland that they just built for Game of Thrones. Like over the years, like they just had like parts of facades, and then as the seasons progresses, they ended up building the whole fucking.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, apparently Conan O'Brien filmed Game Game of Thrones reunion.
Yeah, he filmed that a while ago. I remember when they talked about it on the show that he had gone to Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland. It's where they film all that stuff, and that they had, he'd gone there and was drinking with all the crew and everything. And he had mentioned that they're doing something, and they just weren't really being specific, but it was pretty obvious that they were, because it was it was towards the end of principal shooting for the final season.
Okay, because Sean Bean kind of spilled the beans. No pun intended.
Bean spilled the beans.
Yeah, on that.
But and there's some other people, that are definitely coming back. Because Sean Bean kind of surprises me, but I knew Jason Momoa was there when Conan was there. He had referenced that.
Nice.
He was drinking with Jason Momoa, but apparently Jason Momoa would frequently go out to Belfast, he'd been killed on the first season, but he frequently returned to Belfast while the show was filming just to drink with everyone.
Nice.
So that's kind of funny. But studios, tours.
Oops.
It's interesting. Next news story, there's a Dracula series coming to the BBC and Netflix from the Sherlock team. So that's, if you liked Sherlock, and I can say that the two of us liked Sherlock. It's
Sherlock,
hard to say as in a present.
Sherlock had a pretty awesome first 2 seasons, and then it just goes drastically downhill from there.
This I think is going to be a bit more fixed though, because Dracula's not based on books, it's based on books, singular.
Based on book. Right, but it's a series.
They're going to adapt that. If they're going to adapt that, and they're doing it short form, like they said they're doing 3 hour-and-a-half long episodes, which is exactly what Sherlock was.
That's what they did, but it's based on book, and once they run out of book material, what are they going to do?
Well, that might be it, that.
Right.
That's probably for the best if that's it. If it's just going to be a single miniseries.
No, once they run out of book, they'll adapt that Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman.
And they'll bring in Hugh Jackman, the stars.
Yeah, exactly.
As Hugh Jackman.
As huge jacked man.
We'll talk about Huge Jackman later in this podcast as well.
Yes.
So the next story and the biggest so far from the ones we're talking about is that Netflix has canceled Luke Cage. Now, previously they'd canceled Iron Fist. Now they've canceled Luke Cage. There's some kind of offhand comment that they made before Luke Cage was canceled about how Iron Fist would still pop up in the Marvel Universe, like we'd still see him, show up or something.
Which I thought the logical thing would be Luke Cage. But
now
Luke Cage is gone now. So I don't know.
There's multiple ways to read that. One is that that Iron Fist thing no longer holds true. The other is that both Luke Cage and Iron Fist could pop up in other things. They could pop up in Jessica Jones or Daredevil. We even talked about this when we did our Iron Fist podcast about the idea that instead of just continuing to do more seasons for these characters, to just do team up seasons. They do Marvel's version of Thor Ragnarok, where you have an entire season that's a crossover between 2 different characters. I mean, that's in a way that's kind of what Jessica Jones season 1 was. But they could do that even more so now, and really kind of get into that kind of idea. And the obvious one would be if they did Heroes for Hire,
right?
Which it's a little awkward just because it would be kind of weird to just start another series. How would you have Danny where he is now at the end of Iron Fist season 2 and Luke Cage where he is now at the end of Luke Cage season 2 come together to be Heroes for Hire in another season? How much work would it take to explain them getting back together after all that?
Right.
It'd be kind of awkward without them having their own thing at first. But
the way they ended both Iron Fist season 2 and Luke Cage season 2, it's hard
to have them in drastically different places.
You can't just go from that to Heroes for Hire. What? It's
I mean, I guess you could, because you have 10 to 13 hours to do it. So you
could... Sure. You could have you could have Iron Fist come back from where he is and then decide to team up with Luke Cage, even though Luke Cage is basically put himself like within the criminal element of Harlem now.
I guess you could show a little bit of their past, and you could show maybe like the corruption of Luke Cage, and then show like Iron Fist actually becoming decent.
Actually becoming,
and then have them
Luke
meet
Cage
up again.
becomes a criminal, and Iron Fist becomes a good character.
and then have them meet up again, and then from there you can go to the point of like maybe have them clash, and then have that work out, like have basically the theme of the first season basically being them coming together again,
right?
You know, like, so it's not really Heroes for Hire, it's kind of like the origin of Heroes for Hire, you know. So I guess something like that could work maybe, but it's kind of weird. Like, I don't necessarily have high hopes that we're going to really see these characters anymore. I think Netflix really just wants to. I mean, I think we're for sure getting Jessica Jones season 3, right? They talked about that.
No.
Unless, I think that they already said like that because the showrunner signed a contract for like a different service or something. Like, it might have been Amazon, I can't remember.
Yeah, she left.
But she's going to be doing season 3 first. Like, that was part of the details of it, I believe. Was that she still was contracted for season 3 of Jessica Jones. Like, that was going to be the end of it. So, but I mean, Luke Cage season 3 was planned too, and it got canceled. So that could happen
like to
for
the
Jessica
point
Jones.
where there was a writer's room and they were writing scripts for Luke Cage season 3. So yeah,
I think the same thing's been happening for a while for Jessica Jones. So
right, I'm just looking because I'm not sure if it's been like publicly announced or publicly confirmed by Netflix. So
I thought they did. Like, I'm pretty sure I read it in the article when I was reading an article about her signing a contract with a different company.
Oh, okay.
So she was still going to be doing season 3.
Oh, it was officially renewed in April.
Okay, yeah. So that's, unless it gets canceled like Luke Cage was, then we'll be getting at least that. And Daredevil, I've seen a couple episodes of its season 3, and it's really good so far.
Daredevil season 3 just came out. So
and people are excited about that. It's weird because, like,
what we'll be telling is if Netflix turns around and cancels Daredevil, because now that Daredevil is out, now is the time where Netflix is either going to announce a season 4 or they're going to cancel it. One or the other, right?
I think they might kind of like reboot the Defenders, like not, and by that I don't mean the actual Defender show. I think that's gone. But what they might end up doing is saying like, okay, Jessica Jones is kind of like on its way out. We're kind of running out of interesting things to do. We'll do season 3 and then end that. Daredevil is our most fertile ground. That's the one that everybody likes. That's the one that, like, people are psyched about season 3. People are really into it. People that have been like down on the whole Netflix Marvel stuff for a while now are excited about that.
Daredevil is the best show in the Netflix Marvel. So,
and then Punisher has its season 2 has already been well into production.
Well, that should be coming out pretty soon, shouldn't it? I feel like they've been making that forever.
So what if they rebooted it? What if they said, okay, let's keep doing Daredevil, let's keep doing Punisher, and let's start interweaving other characters into that?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe Netflix doesn't want to have like 50 Marvel shows. I think Netflix like looked at it and said, actually we don't want to be like the Marvel version of the CW.
Maybe, it could be, but I mean, with the amount of shows they're putting out, it still feels like one show compared to all the other content Netflix has out. So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it still feels like
they don't have to worry about time slots after all.
Yeah, they don't.
So
CW is like in complete. Don't give a like. Yeah, let's add 5 more DC. Let's add 5 more DC shows, even though like.
Well, let's use that as a jumping point. Let's start talking about DC.
Yeah, because we got 2 shows coming. Well, supposedly maybe coming from. We have a Batwoman that's being developed, and now
that
there's
was announced a while ago. Yeah,
but now there's rumors. Batwoman is appearing in the upcoming Elseworlds crossover.
But it's being made. The series itself is being developed for DC Universe, I believe, not CW.
Really? I thought it was going to be a CW.
I looked
show.
That up. It's going to be DC Universe.
I guess that makes more sense because I'm like trying to figure out like where the CW has like time slots for these shows.
There's that Alfred story.
Well, let's. Alfred is kind of separate, so
you know what channel that's supposed to be on, by the way?
I don't know, Alfred. But the big news is aside from Batwoman, apparently they're developing a Superman TV series, and this is supposed to be for the CW.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one for sure I know is for the CW.
And it's just a rumor, it's not official. But then when you see what they are actually doing with things,
I mean, Superman's already been in the CW like Arrowverse, you know.
Yes, they have a Superman. He's already shown up. But it's interesting because now there seems to be an increased focus on him and his side of things. Like, it's always been like when they announced Supergirl, when they put Supergirl on, it's always been about Supergirl and like her cast of characters, and with like Superman characters like in the background, and then like in season 2 they introduced Superman himself. But again,
I have a way to put this that we have Superman in Supergirl, but we don't have Metropolis.
Yeah, exactly. We had
so we're
Superman.
getting all the Metropolis stuff is what's coming.
We didn't have Metropolis. We didn't have any of his supporting characters.
Except Jimmy Olsen.
Jimmy Olsen, who they basically stole for Supergirl. So
yeah.
So we didn't have any of his supporting characters, but now all of a sudden they're like bringing, because now with this crossover, not only is Superman appearing in the crossover, the first time he's been in one of these CW crossover like deals. Yeah. Not only is Superman coming, but also apparently Lois Lane is going to be in the crossover with him. And then to top that off, Lex Luthor is getting cast, and he's showing up in Supergirl this season.
Yep.
So it
kind of seems like all the groundwork's being laid. Like by the time a Superman series will come, we've already met all the principal characters.
Exactly. It seems to me like they are laying the groundwork for that spinoff. So I'm going to say that this is definitely more than a rumor. I think this is actually happening.
The Alfred series is happening too because they've been announcing castings.
Yeah, this is more official. This is the Alfred series is not a rumor. This is actually happening, which it's been in development for a while now. I remember hearing about it 2 years ago, I think. Yeah. And I guess it's finally coming together. It's by Bruno Heller, who was the creator and showrunner of Gotham.
Gotham, aka Too Many Villains.
Yep. He was the creator and showrunner of Gotham, so you would assume since he's creating this Alfred series that's related to Gotham, but they stress it has nothing to do with Gotham.
DC's doing like the anti-MCU.
Yeah.
Like MCU is all like trying to bring everything together into this one universe, and DC is just basically given up on that, and they're like, fuck it, 17 Joker movies.
17 different versions of the Joker, 100 different versions. Like, holy shit. I'm thinking maybe it's this new attitude by DC where they feel they can have 50 versions of something that's letting them do a Superman proper show now. Because if you remember before, the CW was pretty limited because they weren't allowed to utilize the big characters. You know, Batman has been off limits.
That's going to be the big one. If we
forever
see Batman show up, that's going to be a big one. And there are rumors
going so back as far as Smallville, when the showrunners kept saying they wanted to introduce Bruce Wayne in Smallville, and that never happened because of DC and Warner Brothers not allowing it.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have the big incident with like how they were setting up Suicide Squad in season 2 of Arrow.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let them use Harley Quinn.
It wasn't just that they wouldn't let them use Harley Quinn, but they took away characters that they allowed before.
Oh, like they made them kill off Deadshot because of that stupid movie. I was like, really? It was so stupid. It was I never understood that philosophy.
Because they weren't even trying to connect the universes. It's like if you're trying to connect the universes, then it makes sense.
Right.
You don't want two different Deadshots on a shared universe. But
right, exactly. It's like if they do the Loki movie for Marvel, you don't want to cast a completely different actor and then continue having Tom Hiddleston appear in the movies. That would be weird and stupid as fuck.
But that's what DC's doing.
And unless the two things exist in different universes are different versions, which is what DC's doing.
DC is a mess. It is a very, very bad place to be in. So I'm going to use that to segue to a better place to be in. The good place.
The good place. Okay, I love that segue.
this is going to be the main discussion of this podcast. We're going to be talking about season 3, episode 4, or you could say it's episode 5 because they did that double episode on the first one. Who knows? Who cares?
It's episode 5 because when you look at Hulu, when they break it up, they hour-long episodes always get broken up into 2 episodes or something. Yeah. So I guess officially this is episode 5.
There were listings outside of Hulu though that were still listing that first double episode as 1 episode though. So they have it confused.
If you go like on, it's confusing. But if you like look
Hulu's
up
not
the series,
arbitrator of like.
Well, no, but if you look up the series on iTunes, if you want to buy the episodes on iTunes, I guarantee you cannot buy.
That's just capitalism.
You can't buy that as 1 episode.
That's just capitalism there. But like I know, like if you type in if you go to Google and type in episodes of and then like a name of a show,
right?
It'll show you it'll have like a grid display of the episodes. You can click on each one for more information and stuff. And for a while now, and that might have changed since. But last time I checked, for example, like last week, it was listing that double episode as 1 episode. And then if you went to like the Wikipedia page, I think it was listing it as a single episode. And then if you did like listing sites that list episodes and reviewing sites and stuff were all listing it as just 1 episode. So it's just confusion. Somebody dropped the ball in the PR department, basically. They weren't able to keep things straight, and it's got us all confused. And screw this show. Let's not even talk about it. I'm so angry now.
This broke me.
So anyways, besides the episode number, this episode is titled Bearimy, which also might be the best joke in the whole episode. We'll get to that later, though. What we want to talk about is where the last week left off, which is that, the entire group, the what they call them, the Brainy Bunch, ended up discovering Michael and Janet with the magic door.
Magic door. And then Michael and Janet had to come up with an explanation for it, which they couldn't. Michael's scrambling,
told him he was with the FBI.
Yeah, he tells him he's with the FBI, and then Janet, really flimsy. It's bad. And then Eleanor is like, no, I've had experience with the FBI before.
I worked at a company that was routinely raided by the FBI.
Yeah, so I know an FBI agent when I see one, and you're not an FBI agent.
What they end up doing, because Ted Danson, his character Michael is trying to keep up a ruse.
Yeah, he's trying to keep up a ruse,
and Janet finally pulls him aside and is like,
it's not going to work. Yeah,
they know it's over. Their point totals are now set. There's nothing we can do. Just tell them,
And then Michael gets the idea to murder them all.
Yeah, we can still kill them all.
He's like, they're so fragile. They're just like
water.
Water. Like all you have to do is squeeze the juice out of them. That'll kill them.
And yeah, as a Janet's like, no, that's not going to work. So they end up just basically telling them, sorry to let you guys know, but you guys all died. We tried to reset the timeline. It didn't work out. You're all going to hell.
So they basically explain everything to them. And then once they've had a chance to let it settle, Chidi comes up with the obvious question of, wait, if 300 years passed, how come it's barely any time difference on Earth, right?
And then different time for moving for the afterlife than it does for Earth. And this is,
this is great because this is what the episode's named after, but this is the greatest explanation of time ever, which is goddamn show notes. So wait, I got it. I got this. Which is Jeremy Bearimy.
Yeah.
Which is what Jeremy Bearimy is. It's not a name. It's the literal timeline. It's just the way time works. Okay, because Michael drew a normal timeline as it's on Earth, which is a straight line where events happen one after the other. A Jeremy Bearimy timeline is a timeline that curves and twists and ends up looking exactly like the human English name Jeremy Bearimy written in cursive.
Yeah, with kind of like a circle around the Y that rejoins it, so it all becomes a loop.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just this cursive writing of Jeremy Bearimy, and that's the overview of the timeline and in the afterlife, and it just goes on and on
He's
forever.
and Michael is like, well, like they're asking Michael for answers. And Michael's like, I don't know any better way to explain this to you. Okay,
It just is.
it just is.
And then she points out, well, what about the dot on the eye?
Yeah, what about the dot on the eye? It's just floating there, unconnected to anything. And he's like, that is never.
No, he said that's Tuesdays and July and sometimes nothing.
Yeah. That's Tuesdays, July, and sometimes nothing.
That breaks Chidi.
Well, Chidi looks like that. Chidi looks at it and he goes, okay. He's like, that broke me. That dot broke me.
So basically the obvious thing that happens here when everybody's kind of like, they reach their dead end, they think everything's over. Michael's trying to kind of say, we'll figure something out, stick around, and everybody's just like, nah, we're out.
Well, he basically tells them that they're all going to hell and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, so and he still wants to try to figure something out, but everybody else is just like,
well, everybody is like,
it's over.
Well, yeah, because they've just been told that it's pointless, and so everybody's demoralized to the point of not caring.
Yeah, they all kind of head off their separate ways. Well, mostly their separate ways.
Eleanor slips back into being her bad self because she stopped caring.
She goes to a bar.
Jason and Tahani, on the other hand, get really big in the spirit of charity. Which is like the opposite. And
let's go through one at a time here. So
okay.
So first off, Tahani's idea, but this is before Jason. Like Jason's with her, but he's not in on it yet.
Well, Tahani is doing her typical rich, her idea of charity, which is like
in a different way. It's
give money to an opera house,
Yeah, but not in her name. So it's different. It's like without.
Oh yeah, well,
that's the interesting thing. It's like before she would have wanted to take credit for it, and now that she knows it's pointless, and that she does there, and now that she knows there's a point system that was calculated, now it's pointless. She doesn't care anymore about having her name on there. She wants to do it for the sake of doing it. She's like, I screwed this up because I did this for the wrong reasons, and even though it's pointless now for me to like benefit from it, I want to do it for the sake of doing it, which is virtue ethics.
That's true, yeah, virtue ethics. Okay, well, we'll get into that. That's a little later. But
that's what I want to say. I wanted to break down the different ethical paths that each of these characters took.
Okay, so Tahani is on virtue ethics.
Jason joins her.
Yes.
And kind of witnesses her doing this. Ask why she didn't want her name on the building, and when she explains that she just wants to do it for the sake of doing it now. And he points out, like, he has like a chunk of money. He's like, he's all, this money, I could have paid my rent. I could have, there's like so much I could have done with this money.
Yeah, because Tahani gives Jason a chunk of money, and Jason's like, before, I love the way he says, he goes, before this money would change my life, I would have been able to pay my rent.
He gives Tahani the idea of just giving out money. That like a big, opera house or something doesn't necessarily need the money. They're getting donations from other people, but just people in their everyday lives struggle without money. So they kind of just hit the streets and just start giving people stacks of money. Like just random people without like judging them, without anything, which is consequentialism. And so that's kind of what they're exploring. Like that's kind of Jason's path.
Right.
And Jason and Tahani's paths are combined, but it's Jason's idea on this one. So they're just handing out money. And finally that comes to the conclusion that, Tahani has an idea to do something different, which is she wants to just give the money to Jason. Because Jason kind of is this very simplistic, pure kind of position that she's just like, I just want to give you half my money so you can do what you want with it. You can do that. And they go to a bank, which has some more of the funniest lines in it in this episode, which is the bank teller says, I can't just give half your money to him. Like we can't work that out. He says, technically we're supposed to shut down the bank if someone from Florida even walks in.
Well, Jason has a great line too, where he's like, well, just put it on a GameStop gift card. Make it easy.
$100 million GameStop gift card.
And the banker's like, that doesn't make it any more simple.
So we'll get to what ended up happening with them later, but that's kind of like the last scene with them before the group kind of comes together again, is that they're trying to find a way to give a bunch of her money to Jason so that he can find a way to pursue his interest with that. Meanwhile, you had mentioned Eleanor kind of returning to just wanting to be bad and get drunk and stuff. She's just like lying about her birthday, but she's not even like hiding that she's lying about it.
No, she's just demanding drinks from this bar.
She just wants free drinks. So
and just being belligerent about it as well. Yeah,
but she comes across her kind of the morality she's learned in that she finds a wallet, and immediately she's taken the money out to use it, and she can't bring herself to use the money to just spending the money. This brings us to deontology, which is the idea of like duty and obligation, like doing ethics for duty and obligation. She sees an address on this thing. She feels obligated to return the wallet against her better judgment, against her core desires. She's a frustrated and annoyed, but she's going to return this wallet anyways. And so she goes on as fast. She takes a cab and goes to like the house that's on the ID card. The person at the house is like, oh, we don't, he doesn't live here anymore, but I have some of his I can tell you where he lives, and I have some of his forwarding mail. If you could take it with you, it would really be helpful. And sarcastically, she's like, oh yeah, sure. You have any other things you want me to schlep along to drop them off? Next shot, you see her walking out with a bunch of like house plants and others. So it's just, I thought it was hilarious that she's just being like kind of sarcastic and rude, and everyone's just kind of taking her at face value. So right. She just ends up like taking all this stuff, and she finally finds this guy and gives him like the plant and everything else. And she's frustrated, annoyed through the whole process. He goes and he's checking his wallet, and she's like, I didn't take it. I wouldn't even dream of taking, even though, of course she did. And this was our whole exercise of fighting against that. And he's like, no, that's not what I care about. I don't care about the money. It was a drawing that his daughter had made for him. And he said, this gets me through whenever I have a tough time. I can just look at this drawing and it cheers me up, and it's my good luck charm. And so she kind of has this weird moment where she sees like a different type of payoff for doing good, which is like seeing that it actually matters to the person that she does good for. So that this kind of has this other kind of impact on her. The next moral path is Chidi, who basically, stands in a field and rips off his shirt. He has
the most visceral reaction to the news, which he completely loses all hope and just falls completely into despair.
Yeah, to nihilism.
Like, yeah.
He takes off his shirt, which is like probably the biggest surprise in the whole show. Because
more than anybody else in the group, Chidi was devoted to the concept of morality and ethics and being an ethical person. He obsessed about the concept to the point where he became a professor and he studied ethics to the point and you can tell based on his character that he's an ethics professor, he's a moral philosophy professor because he obsessed over ethics to that such a degree. So
such a degree that it became a negative, or he was indecisive.
Yeah,
so this kind of broke his indecisiveness in a sense too.
Yeah, this completely breaks him because he devotes his entire life to being an ethical person, and then he just learns that he's going to hell and there's nothing he can do. And so
there's a good and a bad to it. The bad is that he's just given up.
So there's the line where he says the dot on the I in Bearimy breaks him, but that doesn't break him. This news breaks him, truly.
Yeah. I was just the dot on top.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just the dot on the I.
Just the dot on the I.
Quite literally. But yeah, it breaks him kind of like in a good way and a bad way, in a sense.
Right.
He drops him into nihilism, which is the bad is, of course, that
it takes Eleanor to make him see the good in his situation, right?
I was going to say, we're not there yet, but I was going to say, the good side of it is that he's no longer indecisive.
Yeah. Yes.
He doesn't care.
He stops caring. So
that's also the bad side, is that he stopped caring.
Yeah, he no longer cares about the decisions he makes. So he makes very obviously bad decisions because
he walks into a grocery store without his shirt on.
Yeah.
Which, as I was going to say, like, that's the biggest surprise of the episode is probably that, man, Chidi is ripped.
Even though it's a surprise, even though
Eleanor's referenced
it before.
That's what's funny is because it's an actual payoff to a reference that Eleanor's made on multiple occasions where she's referred to him as surprisingly jacked. And now we see him with that shirt off, and it's like, wow, it's kind of like, oh my god, like I just did not expect that from Chidi, like, you know. It's just like he carries himself like such like just kind of like a nerdy kind of small guy, and he takes off his shirt. It's like he's fucking ripped, he's huge. It was just kind of like a weird thing, you know. But apparently, it's interesting. The actor actually has a lot of like body issues, and that was like something that was really hard for him to do because he used to be, I guess, a chubby kid or something. So, but that's a little interesting thing. But back on the main topic, he's walking around shirtless, just kind of buying random stuff, not caring about any of his material possessions. He's become like immaterial. He's like in the grocery store, they're like, you can't walk around without a shirt on. He just kind of grabs some shirt that says like something about like wine. It has like some basic expression with wine substituting one of the words. I can't remember what it is, but anyways, he puts on this shirt. He's going through, he's just buying seemingly random shit at the grocery store, and they're like at the end he's just like, oh yeah, just charge it on this card and then just take the card forever, and like just take my car.
Take my car.
He's like, do you guys have like a take a car leave a car program? Oh, never mind, just take my car.
Just take it.
So he takes off.
He makes the world's worst chili
chili with Peeps. He's making it in his ethics class.
No. Chili with Peeps and M&Ms.
Yeah, he's making it in his ethics class. He's making this chili.
In his ethics class. And like people are like,
is this on the test?
Yeah, is this on the test? And he's like, and they're like, do we need to know this for a test? And he's like, you know what? Everybody gets an A, except you don't get an A, but you get an F. You all fail,
but you all
pass. It doesn't matter, and there's no test.
And this is when we get like all of these names for the ethics that I brought up: virtue ethics, consequentialism, deontology, and nihilism. For him, these are all things that are brought up and then referenced, showing his friends and himself and his behaviors to show kind of like these different ethical paths that everyone's taken with this news being broken to him.
Right.
So this is kind of like Chidi at his most broken, and then the group ends up gathering again, just kind of on the spot, not for any particular reason. They just kind of all bump back into each other where Michael and Janet are. Michael and Janet are like basically facing the idea of being retired, being ended, that they're both going to be destroyed by like putting together like a book, a memoir of like everything they learned on Earth, which is funny, like because Janet says also a cinnamon roll recipe using pizza dough. But they just kind of compiled everything that they learned in the hopes that it could help somebody else once they're destroyed, that they can bring it back to the good place and somebody else might take up the project as a way of like getting more people into the good place, basically. So they've kind of given up, but they're kind of taking this light stance to it, like, oh, let's just, before we go, let's go and do some more stuff on Earth and just enjoy ourselves a little bit. Michael's like, it might seem a little touristy, but I really want to visit a lens crafters.
Yeah, lens crafters.
That's when everyone kind of starts coming back. Chidi and Eleanor come back, I think, first.
Mm-hmm.
Eleanor's trying to kind of get everybody's attention. She has an idea, but everyone's kind of like in their own space, not really paying attention. Then Tahani and Jason show up, and they're like, big news, everybody. And at the same time, Tahani says, we got married. And Jason says, we got tacos.
Yeah, we got tacos. And then he's like, and also we got married, but then we went and got tacos.
Priorities these characters, which Janet reacts hilariously to as well, because she's like, oh, that's great.
That's wonderful. Like Janet's like looking like ready to like murder Tahani.
Yeah, you could take the still image of Janet at that point and just add the meme subtitle to it that just says "screams internally."
Yeah, exactly. And then so like Tahani's explaining like she wanted to give half her fortune to Jason, but she couldn't unless like they were married. So that's why she married Jason. And then Jason says today Jason's like, today was a good day. We gave out money. I got these tacos. And then he's like,
we got married.
He's like, oh, and we got married.
It's like a low key thing for him. It just doesn't even matter. But
like the tacos, like rate higher than that.
But now with everybody in the room together, and after this is explained, Eleanor finally kind of breaks down what she came to, which is that her path, which is deontology, the idea of duty and obligation, she brings up as, this is what we should be doing. We're damned, we're doomed, but now we know the system. We know how it works. So we can push people.
So her idea is like, they could save other people.
Yes, exactly.
Even if they can't save themselves.
Yeah. So it's deontology winning out. The idea that well, let's, we're here, we know this information, so let's put it to good use, even if it doesn't help us. And so everybody gets on board. They're all excited. They're like, yes, we're in. Let's do this. Including like a little funny bit with Michael and Janet trying to do it in unison, but constantly screwing up. But everybody agrees, okay, we're in. Let's do this. Even Chidi kind of comes back a little bit and is like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. And then after you're all excited and you're like, oh, everything's moving forward, a loose end that everyone watching the show had completely forgot about at this point pops back in. Yes. Larry Hemsworth. All with his bags all packed up going, come on, Tahani, let's catch our flight. This is going to be an exciting, we're going to start our lives over. And Eleanor just kind of pulls out her phone to kind of film Tahani's reaction.
And she's like, okay, I'm ready. And that's kind of where it ends. Till next week.
But this has got to be
the funniest
episode of the series.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe not the best moment of the series, like individual moment, I'd say would be the season 1 finale with
maybe not the best episode of the series, but it's easily top 3.
I think it's the best episode of the series for me.
Is definitely up there. I'm not ready to commit to best because I have to rewatch everything and there's a lot of research that has to go with that. I'm not going to commit.
I'd say the only other whole episode besides just a scene the season 1 finale where Michael, where it's revealed that they're in the bad place, that scene was the best scene probably in the series. But the only episode that I think that really rivals this might be in season 2 when they're trying to teach Michael ethics and he keeps creating the trolley incident and these kind of ethical conundrums.
I'm glad we got that side of Michael come back in this episode because it's been a while, right? Where we didn't really see Michael's demonic tendencies. We saw some of his demonic tendencies come out in this episode when he last ditch just straight up suggests to murder everybody.
Let's kill everybody. Then we can just grab them as they first pop up in the bad place, and
then and we can regroup from there.
Yeah. And it would probably have been a very brutal murder based on how he described it. All you have to do is squeeze all the juice out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's such a good episode. I'm trying to look over some other things just to make sure that we wouldn't have missed it. Oh, one was that, there's a part when Chidi first started his nihilism, when he took his shirt off, where a drug dealer had approached him and was trying to sell him drugs, and he got all nihilistic on him, and the guy just walked away saying,
he's like, I was just trying to sell you drugs, and you made it weird.
Yeah. Which was funny. I said my favorite line was probably we're technically supposed to shut down the bank if someone from Florida even walks in.
Yes.
Good policy, by the way.
Yeah, good policy. Excellent policy.
Oh, and then there was the line that Eleanor said about how she came to the point that deontology was the right path, was when she said, I got the idea by watching how happy, what I did could make a dork and his very untalented daughter.
Yeah.
Which is just, Eleanor's always going to have her little mean streak in there, But yeah, that's pretty much it for the episode. Great episode. If you're not watching Good Place yet, I don't know why you're listening to us talking about it. But if any
all the
chance,
spoilers.
yeah, if there's any chance that, seriously, Good Place is an amazing show. This season's been a little bit, kind of iffy at first, like finding its legs. Now it's just, like I said, I'm saying it's the best episode. Will's saying he can't decide for sure yet, but that it's up there. So this is like kind of the turning point, I think, where it's just things have really started kind of heading in the right direction for the show. But yeah, The Good Place, man. Great show.
Yes.
So all that's left to talk about is what's coming up in the week. So starting today, which is the 19th of October on Friday, as we're recording this, podcast won't be available until later. Lore came back for its, I believe, second season on Amazon. Wild District debuted on Netflix. Wanderlust, I believe, debuted on Netflix. I don't know if it's a second season or not. And Marvel's Daredevil returned for its third season. I can say I've seen like the first 5 episodes, and it's really good. I tried to do the live tweeting thing again, by the way, and Spectrum had an outage that lasted for about an hour.
Oh, really?
like literally like 5 minutes into the episode, internet just went out. Like, damn it. So no live tweeting, which I've been doing since I think Luke Cage season 1. I've been live tweeting all the Marvel Netflix shows, so I was trying to keep up that tradition. But
Spectrum was like, nope.
Yeah, Spectrum's like, nope. Some traditions need to end, apparently. So they kind of put the kibosh on that. I was able to get in a few tweets before everything went dark. But I did end up making it through 5 episodes after that, after it ended up coming back and everything. So great so far, really good. If you like the Wilson Fisk stuff, it's, how like the first season of Daredevil, it took a while to really bring Wilson Fisk in. And then season 2, kind of he was just in like 1 episode really, or just a few episodes. It's Wilson Fisk from episode 1. Like, it takes a while in the first episode for him to show up, but then he shows up, and then it's parallel stories in the same way that like Daredevil season 2 was, where you had like kind of half of it was Matt and half of it was the Punisher. But now you're getting kind of like half of it is Matt and half of it is the Kingpin. Right. So if you like Kingpin, you're getting a lot of Kingpin in the season, and he continues to be fucking great. Vincent D'Onofrio continues to epitomize the character like nobody else could.
That's good to hear.
So yeah, that's only 5 episodes in though. For all I know, it could just turn to dog shit like Luke Cage season 1. They could kill off the Kingpin and replace him with Wile E. Coyote.
No.
Hopefully that won't happen. But so then this Sunday, October 21st, 2018, Wolf Creek returns on Pop, and Dream Corp LLC debuts on Adult Swim. On Monday, October 22nd, 2018, DC's Legends of Tomorrow returns on the CW. On Tuesday, October 23rd, The Guest Book returns on TBS. This is like an anthology series. It's really funny, where everybody, they had this like mountain town or something, this like forest area, and there was like this place rented out cabins, and there was one particular cabin, and each episode was it's an anthology series, so each episode was a different guest checking into this one cabin and writing their experience down in the guest book that they have at this one. Well, this is like, it's the same cast that are the people that like were involved in owning the property and all the other kind of like the characters that were regulars that would show up in every episode, but now they've moved it to, it's a new location that's like on the beach or something, but it's going to be the same idea basically as a guest book at a beach house or something. Rented out. So it's a funny show. It's an anthology series, but there is like a connected story that's going on in the background as well. But it's got a lot of funny people in it, so you can like watch like an episode. Like one of the episodes has like Danny Pudi in it from like Community. Oh,
nice.
One of the episodes has Michael Rappaport in it. There's just a lot of really funny people that show up.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So that's the second season, October 23rd. Wednesday, October 24th, Bodyguard comes to Netflix. Have you heard about this show at all?
Nope.
So this is like a huge hit in the UK. It's a British show. It stars Richard, I think it's Madden is his name, who played Rob
That reminds me, another line from The Good Place this episode was Tahani talking to Jason. Is like, you could be my bodyguard. Like my good friend Kevin Costner. He was in that movie, The Bodyguard.
He's in that movie where he played a bodyguard.
Yeah.
The Bodyguard.
It's called Body.
Yeah, but anyways, Bodyguard on Netflix it's Richard Madden who played Robb Stark on Game of Thrones, and he's like the bodyguard for like a high up in the British government who is apparently a very horrible person and a very awful politician, but he's having to protect her, and there's like a plot to like kill her or something, and she's doing something, so there's like all kinds of like machinations going on, both with people trying to kill her, but also with what she's trying to accomplish, the reason why people are trying to kill her and stuff. And so it's a huge hit in the UK. People are loving it. They're saying it's amazing and stuff. Netflix like gobbled up the rights. So the second the show came out and people started like going gaga over it. So it's going to be hitting Netflix on the 24th. Then on Thursday, October 25th, Legacies comes to CW. This is the second spinoff of the Vampire Diaries. I also had the originals before it, but this is Legacies. And Deutschland 86 returns to Sundance. This is like a really critically lauded show about kind of like spies in East Berlin, like at the time of the Cold War. Take place in 1986. That's why it's called Deutschland 86. And then next Friday, October 26, 2018, got a lot of like Halloween-y type stuff because we're right there. Midnight Texas is back on NBC. What's interesting here is that the showrunner of Midnight Texas is the one who's going to be doing the Buffy reboot series.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So this is going to be the second season, I believe, of Midnight Texas. Castlevania returns on Netflix. I know you're excited about that, and I am.
Hi, yes.
We're definitely going to be talking about that. I can promise you that we're going to do a podcast where we talk about Iron Fist, and I can also promise that we're going to do a podcast where we talk about Castlevania Season 2.
Wait, we already talked about Iron Fist. What are you talking about?
Oh, not Iron Fist. I'm sorry. Daredevil Season 3. We're definitely going to do a Daredevil Season 3. We won't do it right away because we're going to have a few guests. We want to make sure everyone's caught up and we can mesh everyone's schedules.
Yeah, we want to make sure.
Time. So that'll take a little while. We're also going to do Castlevania, and we might have a special guest for that one as well.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
So we'll get to that at some point.
And Castlevania isn't as much of a commitment as Daredevil.
Yeah. Castlevania's a little bit quicker.
I understand Daredevil. It's still the standard 13 episodes.
I didn't even bother really looking, but I haven't heard anything. Like I knew Iron Fist was 10 going in without even looking it up. It just kind of was announced. But yeah, it's. I think it's the standard 13. So far, it's not really wasting time. So there's some good stuff in it. But yeah, Castlevania on Netflix. Also coming to Netflix, which I'm maybe close to as excited as I am for Castlevania, and I'm probably going to be disappointed, but I'm still excited for, is Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that, actually. So
yeah, I'm excited. I feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
Oh yeah.
Well, because it's Riverdale. Like, remember, we watched the first episode of Riverdale and talked about the show, and we both liked it a lot. And then like the second episode came, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then it was just like, okay, fuck this show. Right. It didn't hold up to what it promised. So that's kind of my concern with Sabrina. But Sabrina looks better than Riverdale ever did, I think. So we'll have to see. Also, Channel Zero, The Dream Door, comes to Sci-Fi. If you haven't seen Channel Zero, it's a sci-fi anthology series. Every season's a new story. It's based on creepypasta. So if you're into creepypasta stuff, like, and the most common creepypasta, the one that you can bring up that everybody knows, would be like Slender Man. But I don't think they've done a Slender Man one. It's all been stuff like they did like Candle Cove and like the No Door House or whatever that one's called, and Butcher's Block. And so now they're doing The Dream Door. So yeah, it's a really good horror anthology series if you want to check that out. And that's it. That's what's coming up in the week ahead. Next week, we're going to continue our discussion of season 3 of The Good Place and cover some more news stories of what comes up. Like I said, we're going to do Castlevania. We're going to do Daredevil. It's just a matter of when. It'll probably be a month at least before we do either of those. You can check out our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So check that out. There's other content there as well. And all the links to that are on the site, I believe. I need to kind of go through and make some fixes and add some new sections and stuff. But yeah, that's it. Thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to the Total Screen for the very best